All right, let's get going here. All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Bert Blevins, and I'm going to guide us on our journey here around privilege access management, otherwise known as PAM. We're going to be taking a look at the various aspects of PAM and how it works in the organization and some use cases. What I've done is I've taken use cases per like aspect of PAM and I've boiled them down into like how a business would use them or a department would use them. And so you'll see that that note in my slides as we go forward here. So as we kind of carry on here, so essentially what we're taking a look at is this presentation, and then what I'm going to do after I get done with the presentation, we'll go into a quick demo of some just some quick show and tell of a enterprise PAM system in action. And then if time allows, I get a little talkative at times. If time allows, we'll spend a few moments on our AI agents and how they're going to impact PAM. All right, so a little bit about me. I've been in IT and security for about 20 years. Been working in this space. I have about 300 blog sites on the topic of PAM. And so you can find those in various avenues and Google and Chat GPT and so forth. And also I have a nice YouTube subscriber channel you can take a look at. It has all aspects of privilege access management on there. So you can gain little nuggets of information on there and insight. So let's get going here. Let's take a look at what we have here for our presentation. So again, we're going to be introducing PAM and its role in cybersecurity. So taking a look here. Now, as we kind of go into this, what I'm going to emphasize, you'll see this keyword here. I'll show this right here. This business value. I place the business value on each one of these aspects because this is critically important to how you're going to either you interpret the value of the feature or the aspect of PAM, or how you would communicate this up and to be able to articulate why you need this or justification of why you need a particular PAM implementation. Okay. So continuing on, so let's go to our next slide here and take a look at key aspects of PAM. So I'm going to hit on the major aspects, but I'm going to light up this video. Now I did test this video. It is a little, it might be a little small, but we'll take a look here and all right, so back to the presentation. So sorry about that. I probably if I do this again with that 20 aspects of PAM, I will put audio on there to make it more interactive and more friendly and fun. It's a wonderful video. I just need to make it bigger and make it with some talking on it so you can understand it. So basically, those are the foundational elements of privilege access management, but we're going to focus on the key aspects. Okay, so we're going to go in here next, and we're going to say presentation, go over here to our next slide. And again, what we're doing here is the first aspect of PAM is about access control and identity management. Okay, so this is going to be where you're looking at granting or revoking access. This is going to be managing identities and how they get into the system, and then restricting unauthorized access. Now we do that by using just-in-time, which I'll cover in a moment. Just-in-time is basically where you have no standing privilege on an account, and then when you go to use that account, whether it's a shared service account or your -A account, your administrator account, essentially it's your privilege is added to that account at the time when you're using it. So we're going to cover that. The foundational layer of access control and identity management, though, really involves just basically the identity structure around a user and the credentials in which you're using within the system. So that is how that's really the essence of privilege access management. It's all about the identity. So and then how you articulate this, the business value of this is basically you're really wanting to control this and manage this because you want to this is probably one of the most time consuming manual time-consuming pieces that you're going to do with actual users, is basically onboarding them and offboarding them and seeing what access controls that they need. No longer are, when you have a PAM implementation, it's no longer where you, as some user requests another user to be created, and they say, well, just give me what Jimmy Smith has. And like they're ordering up a cup of coffee or something like that. And we shouldn't be doing PAM allocation of privileges like that. What we should be doing is actually seeing what roles they're in and what they need to gain access to. So that is all about access control and identity management. So continuing on here, what we're going to take a look here is, and then we have this use case here where I do say basically what I just kind of mentioned there. I kind of alluded to it before I got to it. Basically, it's a user comes in, requests the permissions for, and they just say, I just want what Jimmy Smith has. And so Jimmy Smith may be a department head, and maybe is the administrator of marketing, and maybe a few other facets that he worked on that's maybe cross-functional. And but that's not a real use. I mean, that's not a real use of privilege access and allocation of identity. So basically, again, it's about the role and placing the role into the identity and granting and allocating privilege to that identity that's properly vetted, and then you know what their role is going to be within the organization or how they're going to use the tool. All right, so continue on here. We're going to take a look. Here's our just-in-time, our friend just-in-time access. So again, this is one element that is going to be future. Okay, so right now we are in where essentially there may be various common threads here, but one of the threads is going to be where you are granted access. You have permissions at the very beginning of your journey with the company, and maybe as you get more responsibility, they're allocating more permissions to you, but never are they taking away permissions from your account. So this is what we have then is called over credentialed privilege, and so this happens over the course of time. What just in time does is it marks the credential and says, I need to be able to gain access to these 3 servers. And when I gain access to these servers, I'm going to give just enough privilege to do what I need to do on those particular servers, and nothing else. Nothing else. You're not overprivileged. You're not gaining access to the admin console of the CRM system. You're basically you have access and privilege to be able to basically manage those 3 servers and what your job entails to do on those, whether it's maybe taking a look at the security logs, maybe it's taking a look at Visual Studio, or maybe running code or something like that. But those are roles that are assigned. And so just-in-time access is basically granting that particular privilege to that role so you can do that job, okay? Not over allocating privileges, okay? And so let's continue on here. And then what we'll take a look at is the business value. And so this really, what this does here, if you have vendors and contractors, it's also is important too. But what it really does, going along with my theme of over permission credentials, over credentialing credentials, is basically insider threats happen. So once a insider knows that they have permissions to do these extra 3 things, and they notice they've had those standing there for a couple of years, the curiosity happens. And so basically they can start to stumble across maybe assets that they shouldn't be getting into. So, and a good privilege access management system, along with just-in-time, can do session monitoring, session management. We'll cover that here in a moment. Okay. So password management, this is a big one. This is low-hanging fruit, everybody. This is one that we're not taking advantage of, whether you're using an enterprise PAM system or whether you're using a consumer type of a password management system. What we're not doing effectively is rotating those passwords and using strong passwords, okay? So this is something that I'll show in the demo because it's one of those 80% use cases that everybody should be doing. And we need to not only be rotating those with strong password formation, but we need to be rotating those passwords regularly and making sure they do have a degree of, again, back to the complexity, where you're using maybe a dictionary to filter out words that would be included within the password. So we can do kind of negative filtering on that. So basically, you can't use words that you've said that you can't put into a password. And so the overall business value of that is essentially lowering cyber insurance costs, because what you're doing, this is a box that you're checking on this proposal form for cyber insurance, where basically you need to say that you're in compliance with password maintenance and hygiene. Okay, and so this is something that is first and foremost that you could do with just a consumer-based privilege password management system, or you could do it with a enterprise PAM system. With the PAM system, you're going to get a lot more details and a lot more controls, a lot more automation, a lot more scheduling and expiration times, and like what I was talking about with the password complexity. You're going to be able to do a lot more of those type of activities, but it all depends upon where you're at. Okay. And then back over here to our use case, I just all hit upon this here. It's basically that automated password rotation. So basically, maybe after 35 days, 30 days or 45 days, you have indicated within the policy of the credential that it's going to be rotated with a complex password at that point in time. Okay. So next up here, we got session management. So what this is I was talking about this earlier with insider threats, is basically you have the ability to watch and monitor sessions that they're occurring, whether they're on a server, okay, or they could be a browser session as well. And so this is important, because what you're doing, it's not because you're trying to be Big Brother or anything. You're trying to help people, again, not be curious about things that they shouldn't be getting into. And it also helps with, if something goes wrong, you can go back to and play back the video and see where maybe the cycle of events took place, that something happened within the system that broke it, or maybe it went sideways a little bit. So you can do all those things with session management. So as we look at maybe the business value of that, it improves. So if you did have an incident, it basically go right to the video, and so you can see the incident response. So if something happened, a breach occurred, you could go to the video and you can say, oh, it was on server XYZ 907, and Bob Smith was in there, logged in at that time. He must have clicked on something or downloaded something that started a process. And then, at that point in time, you can do remediation steps to see what you need to do to fix the security breach. And then maybe another one of session monitoring would be detecting unauthorized login attempts in real time, detecting that, and then forcing that account to be locked out, or invoking MFA challenge. So those are things we can do with the automatic detection of unauthorized attempts. That's just some examples there. Okay, carrying on. Okay. RBAC and least privilege. I was touching on this in the very beginning, okay, of the presentation, and how we use this with PAM. But this kind of goes along side by side with identity management. So you got role-based access. So this basically, it's not just I need the permission set that Jim Smith has. It's basically, what role do I have within the company, and allocate me credentials, or what I call secrets, that I'm responsible for within the organization, but give me just enough privilege on those secrets to do my job. Okay, so all these elements here, the role-based access, the least privilege, and then above all, the risk mitigation that happens, because what this does by doing role-based access is because you're not over allocating permissions, you're essentially, you have risk mitigation. So you're taking away risk that could happen with misuse of that particular credential. Okay. And then the overall business value here is the user has two things. One is the user has the ability to do what they need to do and do their job. Okay. Because they're not having to ask for permissions to do this. The second element of this is not over allocating, over privileging accounts. Okay. And so you're reducing frustration. At the same time, you're reducing risk. Very important. Okay. Carrying on. Next up here, let's go to audit and compliance. All right. So audit and compliance, and this is a facet of privileged access management tools that is critically important, because you want the immutable log capability. So no, you don't want an admin to come in there and be able to delete line items from the log of access of a particular credential or a secret. You want to be able to know for a fact that the integrity of that particular log file is going to carry on through the life cycle of that secret or the user. Or users that have accessed that secret. So one of the main components of a privilege management access system is going to be audit and compliance. So the audit capability of basically anything that happens with that particular credential or that secret. That could be accessing it, viewing the password. That could be launching a session from it. That could be rotating the password. That could be rotating the password on a dependency. You could have accounts that have dependencies on services running on a server. We need to make sure that all that got changed too. So that's all tracked in the audit logs there. And then at the end of the day, compliance is going to come knocking on your door and going to say, hey, what did Sally Jane have access to during the month of February of 2025? And you could go right to the audit log and generate the report. It takes seconds to do this in most systems. And then you can just basically hand over the reports to compliance. You don't have to go now dig through log files. You don't have to go dig through the security events. You basically have it right there, hand it off, and you're good to go. All right. So the business value that's going to come from this is going to be taken away from mistakes that happen. Okay. So let's say that it's all about the kind of the reputation, your reputation. So the less mistakes that happen with breaches, insider threats, any of these types of things that are being monitored by audit and compliance, that we reduce those to increase our reputational score and our ability to be compliant, and thus not suffering financial losses in the long run. So this is huge in highly regulatory industries such as healthcare, finance, gaming, even energy. Has lots of regulations and that need to be adhered to, even if you're a publicly traded company as well, adhered to, so you can be in compliant with what you say you're doing with your privileged access management and how you're handling credentials. Okay. All right. Continuing on. So let's take a look here at our next one. Okay. This is a big one here. Okay. Cloud infrastructure entitlement management. This is another aspect of PAM. So what this is going to do, okay, this is kind of, I would say this is relatively new on the big grand scheme of things. Okay, so what this is going to do, it's going to give you the ability to go in, take your system and scan all these disparate systems such as AWS, GCP, Google, and Azure, Entra ID, and all those components that are in those environments. Okay. Even Active Directory, and scanning those IDPs, those identity providers, and their collective tenants that they exist in, and then bringing back that data and making sense of it to say, okay, we have, based upon just this one system, we have a user that is misconfigured. We have a user that is not, MFA is not being applied to them. We have a user that has overprivileged, as we talked about. So we can start to see these things in real time based upon this analysis that this particular process is doing within a system. And now what we can also do is correlate between what's happening in AWS and Azure. So you can also see shadow admins that are starting to formulate out of the blue. Okay, they may not be quasi and noted as on their title as an admin, but with enough permissions and enough backdoor privilege, you can become a shadow admin just like that. We have to protect against that. This is what this aspect of PAM will do. Cloud infrastructure entitlement management is looking for entitlements that exist for that user object. Okay. And again, that user object could exist not only in Active Directory, it could exist in AWS, Entra ID, and then so you can see where I'm going with this, and even other providers, Okta, Ping Identity, any of those, we can still scan any of those. Or a system can scan any of those, bring back the data so you can then make sense of it. Very huge. Not only is the business value where you can quickly see these over permissioned, overprivileged shadow admins, misconfigured accounts. So that is going to reduce maybe some financial exposure in the future, because an insider threat can occur, or a financial impact due to a system going down because You thought account was still was not active, and it's active, but you can see it in the system. And then you go to deactivate that account, and it takes down a service. So we can start to see those objects light up with this type of mechanism here, this type of reporting and visualization. Okay. All right. Continuing on here. Okay, we've covered that. And then now discovery, huge. This is a huge facet right here. So this is where an enterprise privileged access management system gives you capability. So what we're going to do here with this capability is we're going to hook it to the IDP, again, the identity provider, the system. And what we're going to do is we're going to scan. We're going to scan that system. We're going to say, bring me back all the accounts, bring me back all the not only the directory accounts that are not tied to anything, but bring me back all my service accounts, bring me back all my local computer accounts, local admin accounts, in other words, that exist on these particular servers, and bring them back in the form of services running on a server, a scheduled task, an IIS app pool. Show me what I have here and what identities are tethered to those particular objects, whether it's again a service running on a server, scheduled task, IIS app pool. There's more, but so we're making an association between that particular object, okay, that user object, whether it's a user or whether it's a service account or so forth. And we are, because I've done it myself a long time ago, but the thing is, people have actually used user accounts to be service accounts. I mean, and we're going to find that with this, because you're going to go, why is Joe Carl? I don't know why I use for two first names there for a person last name set, but why is Joe Carl using why is FileZilla service running on Joe Carl's username? So you can find those things. Those are misconfigurations. Okay, we can find those with discovery. We're gonna bring those back. Not only are we going to see those visually, okay, in a network diagram of all these accounts, but then we can slice and dice, and we can select on those accounts, and we can say, okay, I want to vault that account, and we're going to vault it because we're going to then be able to rotate that password every 45 days. We're going to be able to do session monitoring to that, any session that's launched from that particular credential. We're going to do things with that credential now that it is vaulted, managed, and controlled within privileged access management system. Okay, this is the power of discovery. You really cannot do this with your eyeballs. You have to use a system to be able to scan across servers and workstations and endpoints and all these Linux boxes and all this. You have to use automation to be able to scan all that. Otherwise, your human error occurs. You get tired. And you skip things, and you're going to miss something. Let's use discovery process to facilitate the automation of that, bring back that data, and so forth. So what our business benefit here, our value driver is that not only is it prepares for the system for like audits and all that capability, because there's not that one account like I was just talking about that escaped you as maybe you were doing a manual vaulting, because you're going to catch it, and you know that audit's going to catch it. And if you ever use like the ethical hackers to go hack your system, they're going to find those accounts. So it better be using discovery to be able to get on top of that, find those accounts, vault them, or not just vault them, but you can just say, we don't even use this account anymore. Or we can combine this account with we can like make these accounts come together. So we can get rid of another account. It's just reducing the attack surface, okay? Increasing the identity posture, okay? These are all things we want to do. And and then if audit again comes back and they give you an A+ because you scored very well in risk management. That's what we're trying to do with the business driver there, okay? And if you look at the use case here, and I've kind of touched on this, those orphaned accounts, but confirming they're an orphaned account. We might think they're an orphaned account because maybe the naming convention's off or it looks old, but probably it's still being used with some legacy app. We're going to find that. Okay, we're going to mark that. We're going to vault that into the system so it can then be managed going forward. All right, taking a look at remote access. Now this is a big one. All right, these are all big, but this is a big one. This is a big security hole right here. Okay. vendors, contractors, third party, your supply chain, whomever is coming into your system. Okay, let's just put to the side insiders, employees, and so forth using the system from home or whatever they need to do to gain remote access. Let's just work with the third party right now. So essentially, two things are happening. One, they need an account. They need a privileged account to gain access to something. So they need to be able to get into the system, okay, with MFA, of course, and then they're in the system. Then they're going to get those privileged accounts. We need to be able to, the idea here is that we're trying to make this as frictionless as possible with the most security. Okay, now I'm going to pick on VPN for just a second, because VPN, I've been there and I've done this, and it's so frustrating. So this is what I'm talking about, is VPN-less type of technology. Okay, it's the future of kind of remote access. If you're still using VPN, there's a good chance, there's two reasons why you're probably still doing it. One, no one's asked, why are we still using VPN? Or maybe there's a good business case or a reason or a compliance reason why you're still using VPN. It's going to be one of those two. If it is the first one, we want to start looking into why are we still using a VPN, because VPNs are prone to, you're logging in, you're using a system with a VPN. What if that system that you're logging in with is infected or taken over, or there's a hacker lying in wait and just doing reconnaissance on that system? Basically, anything that you're doing is going to pass into the target system right there. I mean, technically, if somebody knows what they're doing, they can do that. And so it's just another possibility of a security incident. When you use like a browser-based VPN, a VPN-less, agentless type of communication to get into a particular target, you're going into it with a clean window. Okay, the only connection there is a 443 coming into that session, and basically there's your secure tunnel, and essentially there's how you're doing your remote activity. And we're not tethered it with a VPN anymore. And then my thing with VPNs is the client. It always seems to want to update right when you're needed the most, and it gives you that little update. Can't continue without updating. And I would also say some of them use MFA, but they're not using the most modern MFA to be able to facilitate those tight controls around a VPN MFA implementation. So just things to consider. And then other pieces around this are not only the secure connection, all that, but I touched on this earlier, but the access monitoring here. So this assures accountability for whomever's into your systems, and what they're looking at and what they're gaining access to and what they're doing. In case something does go wrong, you can go back to the video and you can see, or the text or the commands that were typed in, you can see actually what happened. The critical components here, privilege, remote access is here to stay. It is the way it's going to be, whether it's again third party, or it's going to be, even now, if it's going to be like employees. One of the other things I would stress upon this is that I've also seen this as well, is third-party access is not treated like a very critical component. So what you might have a mixture of technologies that are being used for remote access. And so those could, and it just creates headaches for the help desk. So focusing on one technology, making that technology the de facto technology to gain remote access into the system, key way to increase not only the security foothold, but the user satisfaction, and then subsequently compliance of their actions. Okay. All right. Securing remote access, covered that. And now we're at the conclusion. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to wrap up here, and then we're going to take it over into, and I'm going to do we're going to take some looks at how this actually works within a enterprise vault. Okay. And then if there's any questions here, I'm going to look over here and see if there's any questions here in the chat. None so far. So if we do see some questions in there, well, I'll look for them and we can point to those. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end this presentation, and then I'm going to go over and we're going to start to log in, and we're going to see enterprise privileged access management system in effect. Okay, so let's do that. All right. So I'm logging in. That's a demo, so I'm the easiest one here, but you can see how you can use any of these. We have an OTP, email, FIDO key, on-device authenticator, so forth. I'm going to use security question. If you knew my favorite team, you could guess this one, but you'd still have to know the password. Okay. Now we're going to get to some exciting stuff. All right. We're in the check over here in chat and make sure we're doing okay. So 1 second here. And then give me a thumbs up if everybody, I believe everybody can see my screen okay. So I think we're good there because I can see it in the preview. So I'm going to bounce back over here and we'll continue on. All right. So what we're looking at here is I'm going to hit upon various components of a PAM system. But what we're looking at here is we're in the vault part of the system. Okay, so this is basically I'm looking at credentials. Okay, storing them in the system, and then I organize them folders over here on the left hand side. And these folders give us the capability to do obviously perms and maybe policies around them. And those policies could be password, rotation compliance. Those could be, so are we going to monitor the sessions? Are we going to do these certain activities or tasks associated with this particular folder for all the secrets in that folder? Okay, so basically you can take all your service accounts, put them in a folder. You can take all your -A accounts, put them in a folder, and do things like we're going to view all the sessions that come out of that. We're going to also, anything in this particular folder, we're going to rotate the passwords at a minimum every 45 days. All right, so we can do stuff like that in a enterprise vault. So let me just take a look now at a couple of these. So if we were to go into one of these for detail, and we can see here some of the around this particular secret or credential, and we have all the kind of the metadata that you would expect here. One of the things we can also do, and because a lot of the different, one of the big differences being like a consumer-based password tool and a privileged access management enterprise tools, the ability to share and manage the sharing of credentials. Okay, so by doing that, what we're doing is that we take a centralized approach and then share out the credentials as needed. And if you see on this particular example, there is no option for the password here. So basically, we can take the password, we can hide the password from users from being able to see it, but it's still going to inject it into the target system, whether it's a web-based target system or it's a server that you're going into. We can just inject the credential into the target system, but no one needs to know the password. Very handy to use, and so forth. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is we kind of hit upon this earlier in our presentation, is the just-in-time and getting access when you need it approach. So I'm going to come into this checkout here. So essentially what this is going to do is going to check out this account. This could be like a shared service account. And that shared service account could be used, I mean, not that this is best practice, but it could be used by a couple people or a team of people. So I'm going to check it out and isolate it directly to me. Okay. And so what that's going to do is going to then associate this audit log. All the events that now to this particular secret are going to be associated to my name. Okay. Other things it's going to do with this check out that's kind of cool is going to make it like a one-time use of an account. Okay. So if I take a look at this password here and it ends in IX star, we can see over here this check-in check-out period is for 30 minutes. What I'm going to do, if you watch me, I'm going to check this in manually, and we're going to watch the system, the PAM enterprise system, rotate this password on the fly and then give us a password. No longer do you need to be able to, I mean, not that you would, write down these complex passwords and store them, okay? And so let's just go through that exercise real quick. So I'm going to check it in. Okay, so we checked in that secret. I'm going to look over here to see if we have any questions so far. Okay, come back over here. Now we're going to come back here. We're going to check out this again. So we're going to watch that password rotate. And then again, it's going to show that we really don't need to write down that password because it's rotating all the time. And this is the highest security that you can, hold on a second. We'll come back to that. We've got to wait for that to change. Another one. I have another example here. Let me do that one. I always have a little issue. That one has a little lag to it. Now, look up in one of these. There would be what would we be doing? Okay, so let's do another shot here. You get the point with my check-in, check-out. This one here is going to only 5 minutes. You can make the checkout period for 30 minutes, an hour, 6 hours a day, whatever you want it to be. But I'm going to check this back in. Let's take a look at the password real quick. So it ends in VQ8. We're going to check it in. Hopefully this example behaves a little bit better. Come back over here. Find our example. Oh, there it was. I saw it there. Come back into our example. Check it back out, and we'll see our highly password. Oh, let's go back to the other example. Boy, that is not a very not behaving. Let's see if we can remember. It's still wow. Okay, we'll come back to this one. I'm so sorry about that. Come back to that little piece of the demo. I'm sure that will work itself out momentarily. While we're doing that, okay, and we'll come back to that. I promise. We'll go to look at discovery real quick. So what Discovery do, let's just take a look here. I'm going to come into the IDP, the entity provider, which in this case is Active Directory. And what we're going to do is we're going to point this object, this machine, this system, this task manager around a domain. And we're going to look and see what OUs we need to discover in this process. We're going to look at these particular OUs here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set these scanners to say, I need to pull back all my service accounts, scheduled tasks, application pools, and local admin accounts. I'm going to bring those all back into a view that looks like this. Okay, and then I can go, like I was saying in the presentation, then I can come here to my discovered item types, and I can say, okay, let me take a look at all the accounts, just all the accounts I brought back. So I click on that, and then it'll bring back all the directory accounts. And then we'll take a look at the service accounts next. There it goes. All right. So we can see directory accounts. So it scanned everything in those OUs and brought back those. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at service accounts. And so we can see our service accounts. And I'm going to isolate a particular service account for the example. And it will be generic service account. Kind of for more details, this should look familiar to you because on it. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at this account, but we're going to look at that one aspect that I was talking to you about, where we're going to map and associate in the system. No longer you having to do this via spreadsheet. We're going to map and associate the system this service account to its dependencies within servers. Okay, so we found one dependency, and it was my FileZilla service that is running on a particular server. Okay, we see the server it's running on. We know it's a Windows service. You can see that as well. And then what we can do here is pulling this back. And also what we have here is some other indicators that we brought in that are dependencies upon this particular service account. And these could be credentials that need for like legacy type of applications that need to be rotated. There's no way to go around the fact that there's a string or a connection config that needs to be associated with that legacy app. But all companies of all sizes have these legacy apps, and we have to deal with this. And days are gone where you just put your head in the sand and you just hope that no one discovers that password. And days are gone where I don't want to change that password because it's going to break. But if you're managing it in a system such as this, when this password rotates either automatically, like every 45 days, or either manually as needed, it's going to iterate through these line items, these dependencies, and rotate the passwords in each one of these. And if it's a service, like in this case, it can stop and start that service after it gets done rotating that password. Okay, so that's one of the things with dependencies and service accounts. Now let me pause there for a moment and see if let me check my chat here. Anything? No. Okay, so continuing on, I'm so curious. I want to see if my my thing is behaving now. My check-in, check-out. Or check-in, check-out. Come on. There it goes. Finally, I don't know what was going on with that. So let's take a look at the password. And our password, I know that that's different. ZJ9. So what it did, typically what it does, within seconds, it changes that password. Must have had a solar flare or something like that, kick up. And but it changes this password on the fly. So essentially, after every use, you get a new password, and that's nice. All right. So that is one of the things there. Now let me take a look at. We've covered discovery. We've gone into what a vault is. Now let's go into session monitoring, session recording. Let's take a look at what this looks like. There's two ways of doing it, okay? And there are actually, well, we have a live session here, so there's three ways of doing this. So we can take a look at a live session. This is handy if you're wanting to view a session in live. And what we can do is we can terminate the session as well, in particular in systems. So you can see a little the session here, and we can go and we can manage this. So it's going to pop up there. And then if we come back over here, we can take a look at a video that come on. That's the reason why they finished up. All right, so we're going to take a look at a regular recorded video, and then we're going to look at one that AI processed. Okay, recorded video here. This looks like a Linux session, pretty quick Linux session. Let's go to one that has a little more meat to it. Let's go to here's one right there. All right. So you see within this session, you see like the window popping up. So this is like the typical. If you do have session recording in your password manager, out it there, but there are password managers. A PAM will have session monitoring, session recording most likely, and it's going to give you the output to be able to see this type of level of detail. I'm going to show you something super cool though. I'm going to show you one where we process this video using artificial intelligence to give us a lot more detail that's going on. So let's take a look. Come on. There we go. So we have some of these analyzed here. I'm going to go to one that I did because I have a lot of activity on it. I'm going to one I did a little bit ago. Go to my example here, and it'll pop up. All right. Now with this particular example, watch what happens. We have a video and we are capturing, and we have all this data that's on the right-hand side that's streaming that we can search, or we have a heat map that was created that we can see windows that are text that's being typed in, commands that are being typed, windows that are popping up. We run on this top one, it'll pick up malicious browser sessions, red color. Again, any of this that happens, you can go right to this in the video and cut to the chase and see what actually transpired in that particular when that heat map point in the transaction log. So you can see that if I'm clicking on this, we get to where this is going on in the video, and then we can, instead of watching a 2-hour video, we can just use this analysis and see some detail in the video. This helps us with not missing things that we're supposed to be able to see. So AI is essentially that second set of eyeballs that's giving you visibility into what happened in a particular session. So that is session monitoring, session recording with a overlay of AI. You can do it both ways. You can do it just regular session monitoring. A lot of PAM systems already have that, or you can use it with the AI overlay and get a little bit more analysis detail into what's going on. Okay. All right. So we've covered quite a bit here. So let's continue on here, and let's see. Maybe let's go into. I know what we want to do next. Is going to be into our identity posture, which we were taking a look at earlier. Okay, like scanning like AWS, scanning Google, scanning Azure, and bringing back all that data and bringing them back into a system that we can then see all this information and how it relates. And so basically scanning all these tenants, bringing back all this data, and then we can see levels of threat that's happening within the environment. I'll click on Threat Center here in a moment. But if I was to click on one of these, for example, let's just go into this one right here. That looks like a decent one. looks like it has a lot of problems. All right. We can see from this analysis a couple of posture score here. Okay, so this is an overall score. It takes in consideration all of these checks here and matches those checks up against security frameworks such as MITRE ATT&CK framework, ISO 27001, NIST, bringing those back and seeing how you measure up against those frameworks. Then it generates a posture score here. This is really your health score, your security health score. And then it's going to give this back. 42 is not good. So we can see here that we need to take some action. So we can see here that MFA is not enabled on all users. Well, we have that flagged within our Azure, our Entra ID. Why is there accounts that are not using MFA? Are they service accounts? A little tougher to do there, but we still need to account for that. Another one is shadow admins, or limit the number of administrators. You might have a threshold in your system of 5 administrators, but all of a sudden you have 7. It'll bring that data back to you and say, hey, you need to trim this down or make an exception to this particular rule, or increase the amount of administrators. Here's one that says over permission roles. So we can take a look at, this is just the roles. We can take a look at those roles and see how they match up against objects that are within Azure, for example. These could be VM containers. These could be resource objects. These could be application IDs. Okay, who's managing those? Who owns those? Okay, so we can see those within overprivileged accounts, and we can see how an account could actually stack up enough privilege to be a shadow admin. So if we continue on here, maybe we'll see, this is a good one here, like suspended accounts. How many of these do you have in your system still that you haven't removed or moved to another OU? Maybe they're just suspended or they're inactive, but they're accounts, and we don't know in the background how these accounts, how much are they privileged accounts? Do they still have all their privilege with them? If they were to become active again, what's that going to look like? And so we can take a look at this with a system such as this particular method in using in generating these identity posture scores across these systems. We can then gather enough intelligence to say, okay, we have a system that's healthy. We're trying to get our systems into green here. So if I was to come back here to identity posture, let's look for one that maybe is a little healthier than 42. Again, this is a demo system. But we have a 63. Here's a 70. Okay, this is a good one. So here's a 70. So this should be a lot more green on this one. Yeah, more green, a lot more passes here. Okay, and so we can see that our posture scores is 70. We can see that we're tracking well. We can see how our compliance we're matching up against these particular. Here's our ISO 27001. We got a 79 there. You can see how we're tracking against these, and so this also gives you the ability not only to visually see it for yourself, but if you needed to show this and demonstrate this to, again, compliance or for audit capabilities or in cyber insurance or just a general report on the security health of the company, you can use these types of report to be able to show how you're tracking. Okay, so that is some of the aspects there with KIM, Cloud Identity Entitlement Management. Okay, so we've covered quite a bit here. Let's see, we got discovery. I think we have just a little bit of time here. We can now talk about some of the concepts that are probably going to adjust themselves with agent-based types of activities in systems. And I'm going to maybe point on one here within this particular, and it's called event pipelines. So what this is, there are machine workflows that are running in the back. Now these could easily be morphed into, and probably one day they will be morphed into agents. So we have right now, we have an event pipelines policy. So what we can do is we can orchestrate actions or machine workflows that say if user Bob Smith checks out a credential from folder marketing, and he checks that out and he needs an approval process to go along with that. We need to alert audit. We need to, after he's done using the particular password, we're going to rotate that password. We can do all these activities. We can orchestrate all these activities in the background, and that's with using machine workflows or agents. Okay, so agents are going to start to take, and they're going to start to do this stuff like this. So if we come into reporting here, this is a good one. So if we hit reports here, agents are going to be able to say, okay, on its daily scan, it's going to go, come on now. 1 second. Let me hit the magical refresh button. There it goes. Of course. One moment. Live. Okay. I'm just gonna wait. Let's just wait for it to pop up. There's a lot of data that's coming back here. I'm sure that's the reason why it's doing what it's doing. All right, so here's an agent in play. This is how agents are going to work. They're going to start to do with the lowest hanging fruit, and it's going to be looking at transactional reports or transactional data that then they can act on. And so this might be one right here. It's kind of scanning through and stumbles upon this particular activity here. Which passwords do not meet the password requirements? So this could be password complexity scores. So what it can start to do is it could go into credentials, look for high tier credentials, one type of accounts, and do a couple things. One, it could then automatically isolate on the actual user or the secret here, and say, okay, this is a tier 1 account. I need to alert these 2 people about this. I'm going to go ahead and rotate the password, and I'm going to notify them about it. And we're going to make sure the heartbeat syncs up with Active Directory or the IDP in this case. And then we're going to do all that. We're going to notify, and then we're going to mark it as being rotated, and then we're going to take it off this list. Okay, so there's little activities that are running automated in the background. Because right now what this is here, without a little bit of machine automation or an agent based, taking a look at this report here, it's just a report. It's you can take action off it. Of course, I can click on a secret here, and I could rotate a password by clicking on it. But what we want to ideally do is let the machine workflow or the agent act on our behalf and do these types of activities for us. I'll give you another example. Come back over here, wait for the, not sure why, I don't know if it's because of I am using new software today, so it could be impacting a little bit of my lag on this particular screens that have a lot of load on them. So give me a sec here, because I have one other report, and it is this passwords have not changed. It's another awesome report. And then I'm gonna go to one other one that's gonna be, and then what we'll do is take a look at that one, and then okay, we're coming in here. We can see again it's an active report, but what we want the machine work able to do is say, okay, password has not changed the last 90 days. I'm going to act upon behalf of that particular credential. I'm going to not only alert the people that own that credential, I'm going to rotate the password. I'm going to reset the date on it. I'm going to maybe even do a scan of who owns it and make sure that that is cleaned up. Okay, make sure that Mark Smith, who was in marketing, is no longer in marketing, but Mark Smith is still on this particular permission because they're there implicitly. They're not there by a group. They're directly indicated onto that particular secret. Well, that could have been done, a long time ago, because maybe it was just ad hoc adding that permission. Well, we can use agents or machine workflows to be able to check and scan these credentials for their integrity and see how well, as far as like with the actual permissions that they need. So we can use the intelligence of the agent to say it knows what Mark Smith should be in, and then it's going to say, I'm going to reallocate Mark Smith's access into that particular account, and then I'm going to tell people what I did. And just like an agent just kind of acting on behalf of a human, I'm going to tell people what I did. All this, by the way, is tracked in the audit log, and so it's all retained there as well. So this is just kind of the natural progression of how these systems are going to evolve. Reports will start to become live, agent-based reports. Machine workflows in the background will become smarter and have other tether points to them with identity. So in the case of a machine workflow, now not only can it take instructions, but it becomes smarter because it's the objects that it's taking instructions from are pulling from smart systems, and they're bringing back all this aggregate data to give the machine and that task that it needs to complete a bigger picture on what it is that it needs to do. And so these are things. This is the future of PAM system. This is the future of software in general, but this is the future of PAM systems, to start to move the ball forward with automation of tasks that are redundant and but critically necessary for the security posture of a company and the overall wherewithal and the goodness of a PAM solution. So I'm going to wrap it up with all that said. I do appreciate you coming to this session. I'll send out a kind of a recap of this. I do have a couple of things for you that I'm going to give you. One is you can take an assessment that I'll send out, and basically it's an assessment to see where you're at within your PAM. Okay, see where you score on this. You may be a genius at it, and you're going to ace it and get 100 on it. You may need maybe you're just starting out, and you're going to take a look at this and kind of see maybe what you need to improve on. All this, and then I have one other thing I'm going to give you is a certification process for PAM. There's nothing exists on this right now. I'm going to give you the ability to be a pilot on this, to be and to test out and to see if you can get your certification on privileged access management. Again, there's no other certification out there that does this right now. Because you showed up, I'm going to give you this capability and see if you want to be able to use it. But that is it. And again, I do appreciate your time, and thank you for joining me on our PAM journey today. Thank you.